Hey, I'm Mike from Retro Boost, and today I am joining the staff at Video Game World for something very fun today.
Hi, I'm Kristen, the assistant manager down at Video Game World in Huntersville.
We're going to be taking a look at a Sony PVM that they have here, play some games with it using some RGB cabling, have a good time, and take a look at the store.
Oh yeah, look at all the store and see some retro video games, some Funko Pops, and some other cool stuff.
Awesome. Let's get to it.
Okay.
Now, to tell the truth, I've been wanting to make this video for quite some time, because Video Game World has a special place in the history of my YouTube channel. It's a completely true statement to say that without Video Game World, my channel would not be what it is today. So I was really excited to collaborate with the staff here and have them allow me to film on their location, and also the bonus of playing with a Sony PVM, which I've never messed around before in my life. So it's a lot of really cool stuff we'll be getting into. So first I want to talk about the store itself and its connection to my YouTube channel. I started the channel in early 2020, at least filming for the channel, and back then I decided to take advantage of all these various retro game consoles I had and make videos talking about some games, doing some skits, just having fun basically. It was a great way to channel my energy during the COVID shutdown. As I got into retro gaming again for the first time in a long time, I eventually discovered a video game store that was very close to where I live. So right here in downtown Huntersville is Video Game World. I became a regular shopper there. My collection has grown immensely since shopping there over the past 3 years. But more than just buying games there, I also found myself getting really interested in retro gaming technologies. It's because of the staff at that location that I learned about products like RetroTink, the Carby, Extron matrix switches, and the like, and really got myself very interested in these things, and found myself buying them, using them, going back to the store for advice occasionally, bolstering my knowledge in these product spaces as I discovered this all for the first time. So that's why I was saying before, if not for this location, the channel would not be what it is today. All the videos I've done on these retro products, cabling, all these things I do that have generated a lot of traffic and growth for the channel, I owe that to the staff at Video Game World for introducing me to that world, which is why I'm so excited to collaborate and talk about the store proper now. So now that I've set the stage, let's take a closer look at the store. The store has actually changed quite a bit since I first started shopping here. Additionally, it's worth noting that this is not the only location. There are actually over 5 now, spread around and beyond the Charlotte, North Carolina area, for anyone who lives around here. But the store remodeled not long after I started shopping there, and also expanded to a neighboring space, which at first they were using for repairing old arcade cabinets, but now they use it for more inventory and displaying other products too. So in the store, we find a gigantic selection of video games of all types and for all consoles, ranging from basic to some rare, awesome selections. We've also got a huge selection of Funko Pops. If you're into collecting or trading or selling Funko Pops, Video Game World is a great destination for that. Their assortment of them is immense. And there's also other things now. As part of some of their remodeling, they also added manga to their inventory. They also have a bunch of other collectibles and figurines too. So it's become quite the shop for all things geek and nerd, and it's very cool to see. Regarding the games, they have everything from regular old Nintendo Entertainment System all the way up to the current generation consoles. You'll also find plenty of selections within, as I mentioned before, both the kind of common stuff, but also the rare stuff as well. There have been a lot of really cool titles that have passed through here that I've seen, some that I've bought myself, some that I'm just kind of amazed to see in person, but also other merchandise too. Strategy guides, game manuals, accessories like controllers and hookups. It's really a one-stop shop for all things retro gaming. I've definitely enjoyed having a great shop like this so close to home. There have been other retro game stores that I've come across over the years, but none of them have really kept me coming back like Video Game World has. And I mean, you go back to like my earliest video, and you'll see that my retro game collection was like 2 racks, because I wasn't really giving retro gaming much attention until after starting to get back into filmmaking and doing the channel when COVID first hit. So it went from having 2 racks cut to like 2.5, 3 years later. Now my game collection is like the backdrop of all the videos I do, and like almost all of that has come from just shopping at some of their various locations, mainly the Huntersville one, because of how convenient it is for me. Now let's take a look at one of the most interesting things that they currently have in their store, this Sony PVM. Getting a chance to mess with this PVM is a very cool opportunity, because I never gave technology like this much of a thought until very recently. When I got my first 4K TV, which was like this open box 48 inch that I got like in 2016, that was the first time that I kind of realized, man, my old games, they look like crap. And is that because they always look like crap, or is it the TV? Well, the answer is it's the TV. So learning about all these different retro things like Retro Tink and Carby and similar devices has been so cool, because I've been able to go back and attack that problem, make all my retro games look awesome on modern day screens. Devices like the Retro Tink 5X Pro, you pair those with like a nice component cable with your Super Nintendo or something like that, and you get this amazing image. That's been the focus of my channel, is talking about how we get this stuff looking, these retro games and consoles, how to make them best look great on like a flat screen, high definition / 4K TV. One thing I've never really thought about though is messing around with the original hardware televisions, CRTs and the like, until now. And what a great opportunity, because this isn't just a CRT, it's a PVM. For those who may not know, PVM stands for Professional Video Monitor. It's like the premium version of a CRT with better color and other performance pieces to it. The modern equivalent comparison would be like a LED television versus like an OLED television. Both TVs, but one has like these superior abilities. With OLED it's contrast, and apparently with PVMs it's a lot of things. Contrast, color, and even sometimes resolution. So this is a really, really cool thing to mess around with. I've never really been able to play old games on like a proper old TV before, outside of my really early childhood, which I didn't really think about much, so I don't have much memory tied to that. So let's take a closer look at this PVM. Taking a closer look at the back, the first thing to mention is that one does not simply plug your cables into this TV. So this PVM uses BNC. If you've seen my videos on Extron matrix switches also use BNC. It's a type of like, kind of reminds me of coaxial. It's like a single point connection. You can get BNC adapters that adapt like composite or component, RCA basically, into BNC, and that's how you connect them to, say, Extron. One key difference though, Extron allows you to run like composite component just directly through like you normally would for any other kind of input for a normal TV. This PVM though also requires a sync. So I brought with me RGB SCART cables for the Super Nintendo and the PlayStation. You can get cables that like terminate with the right things you need for this BNC, like a breakout cable basically that'll have all the things you need. In my case, I don't have that. Luckily though, on site with this TV, we have a sync separator that then terminates with the right BNC connections. So I can just connect the RGB SCART cable I brought with me into the sync separator. That'll give us that yellow sync line that we need. Get those connected to the back of the TV, and we're good to go. I'm not totally positive if this TV requires like both audio things to be connected, left or right, or if it really matters for this TV. I got sound out of it, and I didn't really notice any difference in the sound if I position these audio cables correctly, but it's my first time messing with the TV like this, so by all means tell me what I'm doing wrong or things that I can do next time, because I'm all for learning this stuff. It's really cool. And then regarding the BNC situation, these RGB cables I brought with me, one for Super Nintendo and one for PlayStation, come from Retro Gaming Cables UK. I also bought my a lot of Extron parts from them too to get my Extron matrix switches working. They make like Phoenix adapters that terminate with RCA. It's very convenient for the audio part of that. But they also make cables that end with the right kind of BNC outputs you need to connect to a TV like this. They'll have that sync line on them, so you wouldn't necessarily need like the exact sync separator I'm using here. That's just because it's available on site. You could just buy a cable that has all of this stuff like integrated into, which is really cool. So now that we got everything hooked up, let's go ahead and get it powered on and play some games. And it's alive! So it's good to go and working. I'm getting both image and sound, although you won't hear the sound. I'll have music playing over this because the environment that we're recording in is very loud, and I don't want to be recording other people's conversation as they're shopping, things like that. Hope you understand. But it does have a built-in speaker, and it sounds fine. With all that said, though, it is worth mentioning, too, that the Sony PVM does have like a lot of settings you can mess with. Everything from color temperature to more basic things like contrast and things like that. I kind of left it at all the default settings it was already at. But it's a really cool thing that you can go in there and customize it somewhat like how modern TVs work. That's part of this being a PVM after all. It's got more going for it than just using it straight up. A lot of features are built in there. Secondly, although I've never messed with the PVM before, this kind of image I'm starting to get more used to seeing, especially from devices like the RetroTink 5X Pro. All the RetroTink devices have like scanline generation, which is all about emulating the image you're seeing from a television like this. I can say now that I've seen it in person, nothing quite matches the original. But the 5X Pro definitely gets the closest after it got a firmware update that allowed it to flag the signal as high dynamic range, which tricks televisions into going into like their HDR modes. That allows for a way brighter image. You combine that with scan lines and you get a result that's a lot like what this PVM here is doing, that very classic look. But the PVM itself, TV like this, you definitely can't match that classic presentation. Gameplay for Super Nintendo looks very good. Didn't have any problems with clarity or anything with motion. It's an awesome image this thing is doing here. So let's take a look at some Super Nintendo gameplay, and then we'll switch over to PlayStation 1 afterwards so we can get 2D and then 3D. And don't forget that the signal source for this is an RGB cable, which is far better than composite. So we're definitely pushing max performance out of the original hardware even to this TV to get the image that we're seeing here. I'll also say that the way that I'm filming this is kind of like just putting the camera in front of the TV thing. The dark levels in person are far better than what you're seeing on this camera footage. It kind of like bleached it out a little bit, but the black levels of this television in person are very good. I had no problems with them. It looks a little washed out from this footage. It's not how it looks in person though. We'll do two different PlayStation 1 games, a 2D one and a 3D one, the first 2D one being Klonoa. Regarding like the clarity of things, text is very well defined, like entering my name on the file select screen. Everything looks very, very good. No problems there. The game itself is very vibrant and colorful, like the colors on this TV are very good. Really enjoy everything I saw there. Switching over to 3D with Spyro, again, image looks great. And this is all coming from a shielded RGB cable, right out of the PlayStation into that sync separator. Same brand as the Super Nintendo one, comes from Retro Gaming cables. I use both of these cables. Oh, I use the PlayStation one always. I actually run that into a RGB to comp from RetroTink so that I can then run it through my Extron switch just to keep things kind of convenient, all going down that pathway. The Super Nintendo one I use like interchangeably. I have an HD Retrovision component cable as well. That's the main thing I use for Super Nintendo at home. Here I'm using the RGB cable because it was the easiest thing to bring with me. But both of these consoles look very good. I'll let some footage continue to play, get a better idea of what both of these games look like here, and then we'll kind of summarize the experience. Now we've seen Super Nintendo and PlayStation, what are the thoughts? Well, this was really interesting because everything that I've been doing for the channel has been all about getting old game consoles to look as crisp and clean and defined as possible in an HD era, modern day flat screens. And devices like RetroTink, especially when you give them upgraded cables from the consoles, really do an excellent job of doing exactly that. They produce a very clean image. It's almost like, I've said before, it's like I'm comparing them almost to like emulation. It's like, how close can we get to emulation? Because emulation is like the cleanest that these old games will ever look. That said, having played on the original hardware, the quote-unquote cleanest look isn't necessarily the best look. Because the image that a PVM like this produces is really cool. I have no problems with it, obviously. It's a really interesting look, and these games, they performed very well with it. I know that the RGB cabling is definitely helping, but I imagine that composite wouldn't look terrible given the television's technology that's using. So it's really cool to see the other side of this, to see the original hardware on an original era television and what that picture looks like, and thinking to myself what this would look like on like a modern screen, you know, without enhancement devices like say RetroTink. Definitely looks better on a TV like this. So really cool. Very impressed with this technology. I definitely am now thinking about getting one for myself and putting it to use. I do have a free output available on my Extron switch. The way that I have to do things, I suppose I'd probably have to use like a sync separator if I wanted to use like all my consoles, but different ways to do this, obviously. So really cool seeing all of this. Hope this was informative in regard to like the basic things you need to get a PVM like this up and running as far as the kind of cables and adapters you would need. Just don't forget that it requires sync. So whether you're getting a cable that has that included or you're using a sync separator like I was using here that they had available on site, just keep that in mind. Depending on the television and technology, you may not even need to use that. I mean, depends on the era of the TV, but some of them just straight up take RCA, component or composite, no conversions required. So it's a case-by-case thing for certain models. I'm pretty sure for PVMs they all use BNC, given that it was like a commercial kind of product. These were not like made with the intent of someone sitting down in the living room and playing Spyro the Dragon on them, right? So really cool. Awesome that I got a chance to play with these. I'm very grateful to the staff of Video Game World for letting me play around with this, give it the test with these RGB cables and the like. It's really cool to experience that. I'm so glad that I was able to collaborate and make this video as well. So let's wrap it all up. Well, that was a fun time. I have never been able to play retro games on a retro gaming proper screen since my very early childhood, so that was definitely fun to experience. Those games looked very good on the PVM.
So good, like a vibrancy and returning back the color of childhood.
Yes, and it was really fun to finally put those enhanced cables to use in that way, because everything I do is always about new screens, not old screens, so it was a refreshing change of pace. In regard to that PVM, it is a special item for sale here, in-store only, cash specifically. I will update the description should it ever sell out, since it was kind of like the highlight product of this video.
It is currently going for $800. It is only available to be picked up in the store. If you are interested in any other items within the store, for example video games or Funko Pops, you can reach out to us on Facebook through Video Game World or videogameworld.net.
Awesome. Thanks for having me today.
Oh yeah.
If you guys found the video helpful or informative, feel free to subscribe. It is the best way to help me grow the channel, and I'll see you guys on the next one.